Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. They told us the first contact was peaceful. That was the official line. For weeks, the news was filled with stories of strange lights in the sky, reports of an unidentified craft hovering over the Atlantic. Then, the announcement came. Earth was not alone. The world held its breath as diplomats spoke of cooperation, of progress, of the dawn of a new era. But soldiers like me, we knew better. I was stationed at a forward operating base in North Yorkshire when the first wave hit. It started with a blackout. At precisely 0300 hours, every light, every screen, and every piece of electronic equipment flickered and died. The radio was nothing but static. The air was thick with silence, the kind that settles before a storm. Then, the sky split open. A brilliant pulsing light descended from the clouds, illuminating the treetops in an eerie blue glow. For a moment, no one moved. Then came the noise, a deep, bone-rattling hum that seemed to shake the very ground beneath us. The base's floodlights stuttered to life for a brief second before shattering in bursts of sparks. "Contact!" someone shouted. We scrambled for our weapons, but it was already too late. The perimeter alarms blared as shadows moved in the mist. Silhouettes, tall, unnaturally thin, with elongated limbs, glided through the fog. They moved too smoothly, too quickly, as if they weren't bound by the same laws of motion as us. Then came the first scream. I swung my rifle toward the sound, just in time to see Private Hughes lifted off his feet. Something had him. Something with too many fingers. Its skin smooth and dark like polished stone. It didn't hesitate. With a flick of its wrist, Hughes was gone, pulled into the blackness beyond the tree line. "Open fire!" our commander roared. Gunfire erupted, but it didn't matter. The bullets barely slowed them down. One of the creatures turned toward me, its featureless face reflecting the muzzle flashes in eerie, liquid-like ripples. Then, it raised a hand, and a wave of invisible force slammed into my chest. I flew backward, crashing into a stack of supply crates. Stars burst in my vision, my breath stolen from my lungs. I tried to push myself up, but my limbs wouldn't respond. Around me, my squad was being overwhelmed. Some were lifted into the air, their bodies going limp before they vanished into the shadows. Others were simply thrown aside like ragdolls. And then, just as quickly as it had started, the attack stopped. The humming faded. The lights remained dead. But the creatures, they were gone. The base lay in ruins, bodies strewn across the ground. The few of us who were still breathing barely dared to move. The invasion had begun, and we were the first to fall. I don't know how long I lay there, staring up at the smoke-choked sky. My ribs ached, my head throbbed, and my ears still rang from the gunfire. But I was alive. That was more than I could say for most of my squad. Sergeant Walker was the first to move. He coughed, pushing himself onto his knees, his uniform torn and bloodied. "Roll call," he barked, his voice hoarse. One by one, the survivors called out. There weren't many of us, maybe a dozen out of the 50 who had been on base. The rest were either gone, or, well, we didn't see any bodies. That was the worst part. Hughes had been taken right in front of me. So had Private Lister and Corporal Evans. But there was no trace of them. No blood, no remains. Nothing. Just the eerie silence hanging over the ruins of our base. What were those things?" Private O'Malley muttered, gripping his rifle like a lifeline. "They weren't human." No one answered. What could we say? The truth was staring us in the face, but admitting it out loud made it feel more real. "Secure weapons and supplies," Walker ordered, slipping back into soldier mode. "We're getting out of here." I forced myself to my feet, shaking off the dizziness. My rifle was still intact, though I wasn't sure how much good it would do. Our weapons had barely slowed those things down. But orders were orders. We scavenged what we could. Ammo, rations, medical kits. The vehicles were useless. Whatever the aliens had done had fried every circuit. "We head south," Walker said. "Nearest friendly base is 60 clicks from here. We move fast. We move quiet. If we see one of those things..." He paused, jaw tightening. "We don't engage unless we have no choice." We didn't argue. What else could we do? The forest loomed around us as we moved out, the moon casting long shadows between the trees. Every step felt wrong. I'd been in combat zones before, but this was something else. The world itself felt off, like we were walking through a bad dream. Then we heard it, a whisper. Not words, not voices, but something deeper, pressing against our minds like a distant hum. It came from all around us, seeping into our thoughts. My vision blurred, shapes twisting in the dark. O'Malley gasped, dropping his rifle. "No, no, no, they're inside." He didn't get to finish. A shadow moved behind him, too fast to react. A long, clawed hand reached out, wrapping around his shoulder. I barely had time to scream his name before he was pulled into the dark. And just like before, he was gone. In the disorienting aftermath of O'Malley's disappearance, our unit plunged deeper into the shadowed forest. Every step a battle against an encroaching dread. The trees loomed overhead like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches clawing at the blackened sky as if in silent protest. My heart pounded in time with our cautious footfalls, a constant reminder of the unspoken terror that stalked us from every dark corner. We kept moving, driven by a mixture of sheer survival instinct and the grim hope that a safe haven lay beyond the oppressive woods. Sergeant Walker led us, his face drawn and marked by loss, as if every scar and bruise were tokens of the night's nightmare. His orders were succinct, yet in every word there was a silent urgency that bound us together in mutual trust and despair. The once familiar forest had become a labyrinth of uncertain paths and shifting shadows, each turn concealing potential threats that defied the natural order. Every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig sent jolts of adrenaline through our veins. I couldn't shake the eerie sensation that we were being watched, observed by eyes that remained hidden in the depths of the dark. As we navigated the narrow trail, a subtle, almost imperceptible sound began to resonate. It was neither a hum nor a murmur, but rather a collective whisper that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath our feet. The sound was like an echo of our own trepidation, a low cadence that wove itself into our thoughts. My mind raced with questions. Was this the prelude to another attack? Or perhaps a warning from the unseen inhabitants of this forsaken land? I exchanged a glance with one of my comrades, a silent acknowledgement of our shared uncertainty. We were soldiers, trained to face the unknown, but nothing in our training had prepared us for an enemy that operated on an entirely different plane of existence. As we pushed forward, the whispering grew louder, coalescing into a haunting melody that defied explanation. It was as if the forest itself had taken on a voice, speaking in cryptic tones that resonated with both melancholy and menace. I felt a cold sweat break out along my spine. The sound was almost hypnotic, luring us deeper into an abyss of memories and suppressed fears. Then, without warning, the ground beneath our feet trembled. A distant rumble, subtle at first, escalated into a deep, resonant pulse that vibrated through the very core of our being. We instinctively froze, eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. For a long, harrowing moment, time seemed to slow, the only reality being that pulsating vibration that now filled the silence. Sergeant Walker signaled for us to take cover behind a cluster of ancient oaks. From my precarious hiding spot, I peered into the gloom. Slowly, shapes began to materialize among the trees, forms that defied our understanding of physics. These figures were not the sleek, sinuous beings we had encountered before. They moved with a deliberate, almost ceremonial grace, their forms shifting in the half-light, as if they were phasing in and out of existence. It was then that I noticed something that made my blood run cold. A faint luminescence emanated from their bodies, a soft, pulsating glow that mirrored the rhythm of the ground's tremor. The glow was not hostile, yet it carried an unsettling, otherworldly quality that made every instinct in my body scream danger. The creatures seemed to be communicating in silence, their movements synchronized as if part of a macabre dance with forces far beyond our comprehension. Our sergeant's voice broke through the tension, low and steady. "Stay alert, we're not alone here." There was no further explanation, just an unwavering command that left little room for doubt. We all knew that our enemy was not confined to one force, nor were they bound by the limitations of human perception. The very forest around us was complicit in this cosmic theatre of terror, its every element a reminder that the natural order had been upturned. As we regrouped in that brief, heart-stopping moment, I couldn't help but reflect on the surreal nature of our plight. We had trained for combat, for the chaos of human conflict, yet nothing in our experience could have prepared us for an invasion that seemed to defy the laws of nature. This was not a conventional enemy. This was something that had slipped into our reality from another dimension, with motives as inscrutable as the silent song of the forest. In that moment of reflective fear, I felt an inexplicable tug at the back of my mind, as if the forest was trying to pull me towards something unknown. I fought against the compulsion, clenching my jaw as I refocused on the task at hand. There was no time for distraction. Survival demanded vigilance, and the price of even a moment's lapse could be my final one. Our journey through the darkened woods was now a test of both our physical endurance and the resilience of our minds. Every nerve was on high alert, every shadow a potential threat. I kept replaying the images of the creatures in my mind, their shifting, spectral forms, and the eerie glow that had defied explanation. Their silent procession through the forest was a stark reminder that we were not the masters of our world anymore. Somewhere amidst the murmur of the trees and the steady pulse of the unknown, a decision lay before us. We could continue to run, driven by fear, or we could confront the mystery head-on, seeking answers in the very heart of this enigma. I wasn't sure which path was the right one. All I knew was that the night had changed us, marked us with a knowledge too heavy for words, a knowledge that the world as we knew it was forever altered by forces beyond our imagining. The path ahead was cloaked in uncertainty, yet it also offered the possibility of understanding. It was in the depths of that uncertainty that we had to find the strength to carry on. Every step into the darkness was both an act of defiance and a desperate plea for salvation. As we resumed our cautious advance, the whispering of the forest persisted, now seeming less like a lure and more like a warning. The distant shapes moved on, their rhythm syncing with our own faltering heartbeat. We were caught in a silent battle, a struggle not just for survival, but for the very essence of our humanity against an enemy that was anything but human. We pressed deeper into the forest, our movements marked by a mixture of caution and determination. The haunting glow of the alien forms receded into the distance, yet their presence weighed on our every thought. Each step forward carried with it the silent promise of more questions, and perhaps more horrors. In the aftermath of that spectral procession, our unit was quieter than before. The loss of comrades was still raw, their absence echoing in the stillness between the trees. We had become ghosts ourselves, wandering a land that no longer obeyed the rules we once knew. I found myself wondering if the aliens intended to leave us as witnesses, or if we were meant to vanish into their world as well. Sergeant Walker led us along a narrow, winding trail that seemed almost purposely laid out, as though the forest had molded the path to guide us. "Keep your eyes open," he whispered, almost reverently. The usual gruff tone of a commanding officer was replaced by an underlying urgency, a realization that every shadow could hide the unknown. I took a moment to catch my breath, my fingers trembling as they gripped my rifle. The previous encounters had left marks not just on our bodies, but on our minds. The forest was alive with an energy that we couldn't comprehend, a force that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. It was as if every leaf and every stone was imbued with the memory of that first attack, whispering secrets of what was to come. As we reached a small clearing, the terrain changed. The trees thinned, replaced by a carpet of wild grass and scattered ruins. Here, remnants of an old structure peeked through, a crumbling stone wall that hinted at a time long forgotten. Walker motioned for us to halt and take cover behind the remnants. "This might be a good place to regroup," he murmured. I approached cautiously, stepping over twisted roots and shattered glass. The ruins, though silent, seemed to resonate with the history of countless souls who had once sought refuge here. I couldn't help but feel a chill at the thought that we too might become part of that forgotten past. Amid the debris, I discovered something that made my heart quicken: a battered notebook, its pages waterlogged and edges frayed by time. Carefully, I flipped it open, half expecting to find words of warning or scribbled instructions from another soul who had encountered the unexplainable. Instead, I found nothing but faded letters and cryptic sketches that resembled the forms we had seen earlier. Had someone else witnessed the same terror? And if so, what had become of them? The notebook was a silent testament to lives disrupted and dreams dashed. I tucked it into my pack, a small but powerful reminder that our struggle was not isolated. There were others out there, survivors with their own stories etched in the ruins of an invaded world. The clearing soon fell silent again, and a thick fog began to roll in, obscuring our view of the surrounding landscape. The temperature dropped, and the dampness of the mist seeped into our bones. There was a sense of inevitability in that moment, a realization that the forest was drawing us in, not just physically, but into a narrative of destiny we had no choice but to follow. "Stay close," Walker commanded softly, his eyes scanning the enveloping mist. We resumed our movement with measured steps, our senses attuned to every sound and shift in the fog. The mist was not simply water vapor. It carried a weight, a presence that seemed to murmur of secrets too ancient to understand. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with the promise of further encounters with the unknown. Each breath I took was a mixture of determination and dread, the forest's eerie calm belying the chaos that had erupted only hours before. I could feel the pulse of something vast and indifferent, a force that had reshaped our world and now silently beckoned us toward its hidden truths. In that fragile moment of stillness, I knew that our journey had irrevocably changed us. We were no longer merely soldiers following orders. We were reluctant messengers in a war against a presence that defied all logic. The ruins, the notebook, the fog, all were pieces of a puzzle that we were only beginning to comprehend. And as the darkness pressed in, I steeled myself for what lay ahead, knowing that the answers we sought might come at a cost far greater than we could bear. Our journey led us away from the ruins, deeper into a landscape that seemed to exist on the edge of reality. The dense fog continued to shroud our path, turning the world into a monochrome maze. Every sound, a snapping twig, a rustle in the underbrush, echoed like a harbinger of what might lie in wait. We moved with a cautious urgency, our senses straining for any sign of the alien presence. Sergeant Walker kept a steady pace, his eyes darting around as if expecting the forest itself to spring to life. I could sense the weight of unspoken questions among us. What did these creatures want? Was their intent merely to eliminate? Or was there something more, a message, a warning? The notebook I had found in the ruins weighed heavily on my pack, and even more so on my mind. I couldn't help but retrace my steps mentally, recalling the cryptic sketches and faded letters. They spoke of strange symbols, of celestial events, and of an ancient warning passed down through generations. It was as if someone, long ago, had encountered a similar darkness and had tried to leave behind clues for those who might follow. As we advanced, the forest began to change. The towering trees gave way to a more open glen, where the moonlight broke through the thinning canopy. In this sudden clarity, the natural world appeared almost serene, an eerie contrast to the terror we had left behind. But serenity in this place was deceptive. The quiet was pregnant with expectation, as if the calm was the precursor to another storm. We halted near a shallow stream that wound its way through the glen. The water was unnaturally still, its surface mirroring the silver light of the moon. For a moment, I allowed myself a brief respite, my thoughts wandering to memories of home and the life I once knew. It was a luxury now, a fleeting echo of normalcy amidst the chaos. I knelt by the stream, dipping my fingers into the cool water. In the silence that followed, I felt a strange pull, a beckoning that seemed to rise from the depths of the water itself. The sensation was subtle yet insistent, urging me to look deeper. In that reflective surface, I saw more than just my own tired eyes. Fleeting images of places far beyond our familiar world flashed before me, scenes of cosmic vistas, ancient ruins bathed in starlight, and beings that defied human description. I jerked my hand away, shaken by the vivid impressions. My comrades noticed my sudden agitation, their eyes reflecting shared concern and unspoken questions. Sergeant Walker's gaze met mine for a brief second, and I saw there the burden of leadership, a silent understanding that we were being drawn into something far beyond conventional warfare. "Keep moving," he murmured, his tone resolute. "We need to find shelter and answers. Stay sharp." His words, though simple, carried the weight of our collective determination. We resumed our march, leaving the glen behind, as if it were a memory from another life. The further we ventured, the more the landscape seemed to warp. Shadows played tricks on our eyes, and sometimes I could almost swear I saw figures moving at the periphery of my vision. They never materialized fully, just hints of movement, as if the forest was testing our resolve. With every step, the line between reality and nightmare blurred further. The haunting melody of the forest persisted, a soft, rhythmic pulse that matched the beat of our hearts. It wasn't a song of despair, but rather a cadence that spoke of cycles, of beginnings and endings, interwoven with the fabric of time. I found myself pondering whether the alien force was part of a natural order we had never understood, a force that had arrived to remind humanity of its fragile place in the universe. In the midst of our cautious trek, we encountered a clearing unlike any we had seen before. It was circular, marked by ancient stone pillars, arranged in a pattern that suggested deliberate design. The stones, covered in moss and lichen, bore carvings that echoed the symbols from the notebook. They whispered of forgotten lore and a connection between the land and the cosmos, a bridge between worlds that we had inadvertently crossed. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The silence of the clearing was profound, as if the very air was holding its breath. I stepped forward, compelled to trace my fingers along one of the cold, weathered stones. Its surface was etched with patterns that shimmered faintly under the moon's gaze, patterns that resonated with an energy I couldn't explain. "What do you make of it?" one of my fellow soldiers asked in a hushed tone, breaking the spell of silence. His voice was tentative, as though he feared disturbing the ancient secrets embedded in the stone. Walker answered softly, "It's a marker, perhaps a guide, maybe even a warning." His words hung in the air, loaded with possibilities. Were these markers meant to guide survivors like us, or were they relics of a past encounter, one that foretold the events we were now living? The gravity of the moment pressed down on us. Here, in the midst of an alien invasion that had torn our lives apart, lay hints of a larger tapestry, a story that spanned centuries and possibly worlds. The realization was both humbling and terrifying. In the face of such cosmic mysteries, our own struggles felt both minuscule and monumental. With the clearing as our temporary refuge, we set up a modest camp. There was no luxury here, only the bare necessities for survival. Yet, amidst the sparse arrangements, there was a palpable sense of purpose. We were not merely fleeing an enemy, we were on the precipice of uncovering truths that could redefine our understanding of existence. That night, under a sky smeared with stars, I sat by a small fire, the flickering flames dancing in rhythm with the unseen forces around us. The silence was profound, yet it was filled with the murmurs of the ancient stones and the distant, persistent hum of the alien presence. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, not just by the creatures that had shattered our world, but by something older, something that had witnessed the ebb and flow of countless eras. In that quiet contemplation, I resolved to piece together the fragments of the mystery laid before us, the notebook, the symbols on the stones, and the strange visions in the water. They were all clues, parts of a narrative that begged to be understood, and though fear gripped my heart, it was tempered by a fierce determination to survive, to learn, and perhaps to make sense of the chaos that had upended our lives. As I drifted into a restless sleep that night, the rhythmic cadence of the forest whispered promises of answers and warnings alike. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but one truth was clear. Our encounter with the unknown was only just beginning. Night in the clearing was a strange tapestry of light and shadow. The small camp, huddled beneath the ancient stone markers, felt both protective and ominous. Sleep was a luxury none of us could fully afford, not with the unknown pressing at the edges of our awareness. Even in the fragile hours of darkness, I remained alert, my mind a battlefield of memories and mounting questions. I awoke before dawn, the low murmur of the forest a constant reminder of that eerie cadence that had haunted us since the first encounter. In the early light, the fog began to lift, revealing twisted silhouettes of trees and the faint outline of distant hills. The notebook, still clutched in my hand, felt heavier now, as if burdened with secrets too vast for any single soul. Sergeant Walker was already awake, quietly organizing our sparse supplies. His eyes, weary but resolute, met mine with a silent understanding that the calm before the storm was fleeting. "We need to move," he said softly, almost to himself. His voice carried the weight of a decision made in the deep recesses of a mind that had witnessed too much. We broke camp with a tentative urgency. The clearing, with its ancient stones and whispered history, receded behind us as we retraced our steps along a barely visible path. Every rustle of leaves and distant snap of a branch set our nerves on edge, and I found my hand subconsciously resting on my rifle's grip. The world outside that clearing was a vast unknown, a place where the boundaries between what we understood and what lay beyond were rapidly dissolving. As we navigated through the awakening forest, the landscape began to change again. The oppressive fog gave way to a pale, diffused light that bathed the woods in a spectral glow. The trees, now standing as silent witnesses, seemed to watch our every move. It was as though the forest itself had become an extension of the alien presence, an ever-present force that both concealed and revealed the mysteries of this invasion. I recalled the cryptic symbols in the notebook and the carvings on the stone pillars. Each new clearing, every unusual formation in the foliage, seemed to mirror those symbols, a recurring motif that hinted at a connection between the natural world and the force that had invaded it. There was a rhythm to it all, a language of shapes and light that I was only beginning to grasp. With every step, I wondered if the aliens had come not merely as conquerors, but as heralds of something ancient and unyielding. Our progress was halted by a sudden disturbance, a low, resonant vibration that seemed to emanate from the earth itself. It was a sound that defied the ordinary, as if the planet was groaning under the weight of an unseen pressure. We stopped in our tracks. The vibration grew, and in that moment, the ground beneath us felt as though it might split open at any second. The sensation was not one of immediate physical danger, but of impending change, an unsettling shift in the fabric of our reality. "Steady, everyone," Walker instructed, his tone measured and calm, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of anxiety. "Let's see if we can trace the source." We moved cautiously towards a ridge that overlooked a vast valley. From this vantage point, the full scope of the disturbance became apparent. The valley was dotted with flickering lights, pale, irregular glimmers that pulsed in time with the rhythmic tremor of the ground. They were not fires, nor any natural phenomenon we had known. They were alien in every sense of the word. The lights traced intricate patterns that defied explanation, as though they were mapping out a cosmic blueprint laid across the terrain. The sight evoked both awe and dread. I found myself grappling with the possibility that these lights might be signals, messages from an intelligence that we had barely begun to understand. Were they beacons calling out to us, or were they the remnants of something far older and more mysterious? The valley below seemed to pulse with life, a living mosaic that stretched out beyond the horizon, inviting and foreboding in equal measure. The decision to descend into the valley was not taken lightly. We gathered our few belongings and began the slow, deliberate journey downward, our steps measured against the weight of our collective uncertainty. The air grew colder as we approached, and the luminescent pattern on the valley floor grew ever more complex. It was as if we were being led to a grand hidden chamber of the world, a place where the boundaries between the known and the unknown had finally crumbled. As we reached the base of the ridge, the lights coalesced into a central figure, a massive circular formation of light that pulsed with a hypnotic rhythm. It was surrounded by smaller orbs, each moving in its own slow orbit. The scene was surreal, like something conjured from the depths of a fevered dream. I felt both the pull of curiosity and the icy grip of fear. It was clear that this was no random natural occurrence. It was as if the valley itself was a gateway, a threshold to a dimension where time and space bent to the will of an intelligence far beyond our own. We set up a perimeter at a safe distance, and for a long while we observed the formation in silent wonder. The lights did not flicker or waver erratically. Instead, they maintained a steady, deliberate cadence, as if reciting an ancient incantation. The valley, with its symphony of light and sound, offered no explanations, only the undeniable presence of something extraordinary. In that moment, I felt a profound connection to every soul who had ever gazed upward at the stars and wondered about the mysteries of the universe. The invasion, the destruction, and the terror that had befallen us were not isolated events. They were part of a grander narrative, one in which our lives, however fleeting, were intertwined with forces that spanned the cosmos. The valley was a reminder that we were not alone in our search for meaning, that even in the depths of despair, there existed the potential for discovery. As the first light of dawn began to edge over the valley, the circular formation of lights started to fade, its glow softening until it dissolved into the ambient brightness of the new day. The spectacle left us with more questions than answers, yet it also ignited a spark of hope. A hope that perhaps, in understanding these signals, we might learn how to coexist with the unimaginable forces that now shared our world. With the valley slowly returning to an eerie normalcy, Walker gathered us close. "We've witnessed something beyond our comprehension," he said, his voice steady yet filled with quiet determination. "We need to document everything we can. The notebook, these markings, even our own memories. They might be the key to unraveling what's happened here." I nodded silently, the gravity of our situation settling over me like a shroud. I felt an overwhelming need to record every detail, every fleeting sensation, as if preserving these moments might somehow stitch together the fragmented pieces of our shattered reality. In the days to come, every observation would be a thread in the tapestry of our survival, a tapestry that might one day explain the origins of this invasion and the true purpose of the lights in the valley. With our brief respite complete, we began our cautious return, each step carrying us away from the valley, yet leaving its memory indelibly imprinted on our minds. The road ahead was uncertain, and the mystery of the alien presence remained as vast and impenetrable as ever. But in that silent communion with the unknown, we had taken the first step towards understanding the cosmic forces at play, and perhaps, towards reclaiming a future that had been irrevocably altered. In the days that followed our descent into the Valley of Lights, our small band of survivors found ourselves in an uneasy limbo, a place where time seemed to stretch, and the fabric of reality was as fragile as the frost that settled each morning. Our journey had taken us further from the familiar remnants of our shattered base, deeper into landscapes that defied all logic, and each step was accompanied by the relentless hum of questions echoing in my mind. After the spectacle in the valley, we pressed on, determined to follow any clue that might shed light on the origin of these phenomena and on how to reclaim our world. The path ahead was treacherous. Nature itself seemed to rebel against our progress. The once orderly forest trails twisted into labyrinthine tracks, overgrown with vegetation that had begun to reclaim the scars of conflict. The notebook, still heavy in my pack, had become both a guide and a burden, a silent testament to the cryptic warnings of those who had come before us. One chilly evening, as dusk settled like a shroud over the land, we stumbled upon a dilapidated stone structure nestled against a hillside. Its walls, though crumbling and overtaken by ivy, bore elaborate carvings that mirrored the symbols from the notebook. There was an undeniable resonance between those markings and the patterns we had witnessed in the valley. The discovery filled us with both trepidation and a desperate hope. Sergeant Walker, ever the pragmatist, proposed we set up a temporary camp within the structure's ruins. The building, with its hollowed halls and broken arches, provided a semblance of shelter against the encroaching darkness. Inside the structure, the silence was profound, punctuated only by the distant sound of dripping water and the occasional creak of settling stone. I took a moment to explore the crumbling corridors, my footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. Faded murals on the walls told stories of celestial events and ancient rites, a civilization that seemed to have once worshipped the very phenomena we now witnessed. I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that these walls held secrets meant for a far different time, secrets that might reveal why our world had become a battleground for the cosmic forces. Later that night, gathered around a modest fire, the survivors shared their own recollections and theories. One of the younger soldiers, whose wide eyes betrayed both fear and wonder, whispered of legends his grandmother had told him, of a time when the heavens were believed to be the domain of gods and monsters, and when mankind's fate was written in the stars. Although these stories had been relegated to mere folklore, hearing them now added a chilling layer of possibility. Had our ancestors sensed this coming? Was the invasion part of a cycle older than human memory itself? As the firelight danced across our weary faces, I scribbled notes in my journal, trying to capture the intangible feelings that coursed through me. Every line and every symbol was a desperate attempt to make sense of the inexplicable. The structure around us seemed to pulse with a subdued energy, as though it were alive, a guardian of ancient wisdom and a witness to the convergence of destinies. In the deep hours of the night, while my comrades succumbed to fitful sleep, I found myself drawn once more to the murals. I traced my fingers over the worn carvings, feeling as if I were communing with voices from a lost era. Amidst the intricate patterns, I discovered a depiction of a towering figure cloaked in light, a being that seemed both benevolent and foreboding. Was this an omen, a protector, or perhaps a harbinger of further trials? The ambiguity of the image haunted me as much as it stirred a flicker of hope. Yet, even as the building offered temporary refuge, the outside world pressed in with its own demands. The persistent hum that had first heralded the arrival of the alien presence now seemed to intensify with each passing day. It was as if the cosmos was orchestrating a slow, inexorable transformation, one that would soon engulf everything in its path. Our quiet moments were interrupted by distant, unidentifiable sounds that resonated in the dead of night, reminding us that we were never truly alone. In those silent hours, I wrestled with the enormity of our situation. The invasion was not merely an external assault. It was a profound disruption of everything we had ever known. The familiar order of our world had been upended, replaced by a tapestry of mysteries and ancient truths. Amidst the ruins of human civilization and the echoes of forgotten lore, we were left to piece together our survival and perhaps to find meaning in the chaos. As dawn broke on our 8th day in the stone refuge, a renewed determination took hold of us all. We knew that our temporary sanctuary was not a final haven, but rather a waypoint on a longer, more perilous journey. With the notebook's cryptic clues and the enigmatic murals as our guide, we prepared to leave the sanctuary behind, ready to venture further into the unknown. The road ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but in that moment, united by our shared resolve, we chose to face the coming trials together. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.